Auto rifles got a massive 25% buff last week, but the question is, was that even enough? In this video, I wanted to answer that question while also covering what I think is currently one of the best auto rifles in Destiny 2. Rufus's Fury is a 720 RPM auto rifle, which drops from the Root of Nightmares raid. You guys can get this from the 3rd and 4th encounter in the raid if you do still need it, and after getting 5 red border frames, it's completely craftable, guaranteeing yourself a 5 out of 5 Godroll, which you are going to want in PvE. The main role I am going to be using in this video is going to be Demo Frenzy, but I will also be going over another PvE Godroll later in the video, so make sure to stick around to check that out. Before the mid-season patch went live, I tested every single primary weapon that was getting buffed and then compared them to SMGs because SMGs are meta, and autos were looking terrible. After applying the 25% increase, it looked like they were going to be much better, but still wouldn't be the best option. But now that we have the 25% buff, how do they actually feel? I took Rufus's Fury into some of my favorite underpower activities to test it out, and I was actually extremely surprised. First things first, 25% sounds like a massive buff, but as I just went over, autos were ass. And for anybody who says, what about Quicksilver Storm? You're coping. So even with a 25% buff, which sounds massive on paper, it really isn't that insane of a buff to give to a weapon that fell that far behind the meta. That said, the damage and TDK that this thing has in PvE, even when 15 to 20 underpower, is extremely solid. It still isn't quite the level of something like Funnel Web, which I'll showcase later, but there are definitely times when you would want to use this over an SMG. On top of that, Rufus's is also a Strand weapon, so when paired with Strand builds and even seasonal artifact mods like Allied Unraveling, the thing melted. Allied Unraveling was also just buffed in a sense because it now works with any subclass you're running and only needs a Strand weapon to work. I know this is only seasonal, but there are also fragments and abilities which do provide unraveling effects. Plus, Bungie confirmed we are getting one additional aspect for each class at some point, so I'm hoping some of those lean into unraveling rounds to make Strand weapons more viable each season rather than just in Season 20. With unraveling rounds, as you can see, the ad clear becomes pretty nuts. It's similar to something like Siva Nanites, and the additional damage really helps with ad clear, especially to rip shields and lower the health of tankier enemies passively, when all you need to be doing is clearing ads for this to take effect. Switching over to D2 Foundry, I'll throw a link to this site in the description below if you guys haven't checked it out yet. It has a ton of super useful information, which is pretty much 100% accurate and allows you to play with different weapon rolls for whatever you may want to craft or earn in game. For the first Godroll on your barrel, you want full bore just for the 15 range. Then you're also going to want to throw on high caliber rounds. This gives a bit of extra range, but the main thing this does here in PvE is allow us to infinitely flinch red bar enemies, even when like 15 to 20 under power. And I don't think other mag perks really add that much of a benefit anyways. For the third column, you're going to want Demolitionist on. This is going to give 10% grenade energy back per kill we get, since we're using it on a primary, which is the main reason we're using this perk. Plus, if you throw your grenade, you get a reload as well. Lastly, probably my favorite perk in all of Destiny, as you're going to see the stats get cranked with this one. We're getting plus 100 handling and plus 100 reload with the perk Frenzy in the final column. And on top of that, we're getting a roaming 15% damage increase as long as we are in combat. Lastly, make sure to throw on a range masterwork and then minor spec to make this as effective as possible in PvE. For the second roll, I don't think this one is as good, but some people like going for the best damage perk possible. Frenzy is only 15%, and we do have some better options, so I wanted to cover that as well, if that fits your playstyle. First and foremost, we still have full bore, we still have high cal rounds, we do still have a range masterwork, and obviously minor spec as well. For the third column perk, you're going to want rewind rounds. I do think, in general, reconstruction is a better perk, but it only works if you're not using the weapon and continually firing it. So with something like an auto rifle as our main ad clear weapon, reconstruction is going to only really work for the first mag, and then after that, it's completely useless. Shots are really easy to hit on an auto, so something like a rewind rounds is going to come in clutch, extending your mag size and allowing you to get off more damage without needing to reload as often. In the fourth column, I think target lock is the best option if you do want to maximize your damage. At the very bottom, the text says, assuming no shots are missed, it provides a 25% damage buff on average across your entire magazine. That's assuming a base mag size of 100% though. With something like rewind rounds applied, as you see, you could potentially get up to 60% of your mag back. So the average damage increase that it's going to provide is going to be much higher when pairing these two perks together. That said, if you wanted to play things safer and get a little bit more than something like Frenzy provides, Paracausal Affinity is a 20% buff, which is pretty much infinite as long as you keep getting a kill with the weapon here or there. To end the video off, I did want to quickly compare this Godroll to a Godroll Funnel Web. So starting with an optimal Rufus's setup when using unraveling rounds, it's pretty solid. We're going to be hitting for 1,117 damage in the crit with Frenzy. So if you do end up taking that, multiplying by 720 rounds per minute, that ends up being roughly 13.4 thousand damage per second. I know that doesn't account for reloads or damage from unraveling rounds, but that's just a gauge so that we can compare it to funnel web. Once you do get unraveling rounds going, the damage they deal is also extremely solid. It's nothing insane, but it also isn't anything gimmicky where it looks like stuff's happening, but they don't really deal that much damage. They're just solid. Additionally, the magazine size is great, reducing reloads. Our reload speed and handling are obviously maxed out with Frenzy, and this weapon feels insanely stable, making it easier to spam crits compared to most SMGs. Plus, we do also have a pretty significant range to play at with this. Compared to funnel web with volatile rounds though, it's not even close. First things first, funnel web hits for 1,168 per crit with Frenzy. Using the same logic at 900 RPM, this ends up being 17.5 thousand damage per second. So that's much higher. And as you can easily tell, volatile rounds are significantly stronger than unraveling rounds. No need to go into too much detail. The only major difference between these two weapons is funnel web does have noticeably worse damage fall off and is slightly less stable. All of that said, comparing these weapons without volatile rounds and unraveling rounds, things feel much different. Staying on funnel web here, you can see volatile rounds carried. They are super strong, so without them, we clear much slower and need to focus every single ad individually. If you pay attention, I'm also only hitting like 50% of my crits here, and with 37 in the mag, even when under power, I am lucky if I get 2 kills in the same magazine. Things are still going to die extremely quickly, and I would say funnel web is amazing still, but you can feel when you are missing volatile rounds. Rufus's Fury, on the other hand, felt extremely comparable now. The TTK, as I went over, is going to be better on funnel web, but it felt easier to hit crits with an auto rifle. And we're also able to play from a further range and still have the recoil feel manageable. Not to mention, the major difference between these weapons is going to be high caliber rounds, as I went over. Even when under power, we can keep red bar enemies perma-stunned, making crits easier to hit since enemies just aren't able to move, and this makes end game content much easier since the enemy we are focusing isn't going to be able to shoot us back. At the end of the day, I'm not going to lie and say I think Rufus's Fury, or any auto for that matter, is going to be better than a 900 RPM SMG. They deal better damage, plain and simple. But I think there are definitely areas in the game where a rapid fire frame auto rifle is going to be a better option than an SMG, which is mostly just going to come down to range limitations, and as I went over, areas where you've seen you can perma-stun red bar enemies. And in those areas, Rufus's is going to be the best option to run. Let me know your thoughts on the weapon in the comments below, and also let me know if you guys want more of these weapon review videos for PvE, and if so, which weapons you want to see next. I stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we do low mans and speedruns every week, so make sure to check that out and my Discord server in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video. As always, have a good one, guys. Peace.